prepared a number of questions, but this is supposed to be a little bit more open, right? This is about just discussing about the things that you believe are interesting for the others to listen. But I think it's very interesting because the three presentations were around the same concept, which is storytelling, right? I think the three of you put the storytelling in the center, right? In the core of what you do. In different ways, sometimes it becomes more visual, sometimes it becomes more about the narrative around, sometimes the business is involved with that, as Jim explained. Sometimes in the case of Rebecca, it's more about the experience, right? And not so much about a traditional narrative and mixing this with user experience, with user interfaces, many other things. And in the case of Mikki, I think it's very interesting how you mixed all these different disciplines and you created something that works as a whole thing, right? Not the fragments of different things trying to work together, but building a story all together. So three very interesting points of view, and I would like to deal a little bit with all these ideas. Well, the first thing I wanted to say is this idea of building something, you know? I think when we talk about light design, sometimes we think about the plot, right? We think about something that happens before the event, but that's not what you guys do, right? You build something. You build a process, you build a project, you start with the research, and you end up in the results. That is building emotions for someone else. So it's, at the end, you're a builder of dreams in a way, right? So with this point of view, Jim, in your context, in the context of a project, because you're normally working in big projects that involve a lot of people, and probably most of these people don't even know what a lighting fixture is, right? They are connected to you in other ways, maybe marketing-wise and so on, but the storytelling is still driving this. So in this context, how do you create a space that becomes safe for all these people that are not familiar with the roles of the others, but they need to work together to build something? How do you create this mood or this atmosphere that makes everyone better?
I don't think we've been in a position where the other departments don't really understand what we do. They may not know exactly technically how we do our job in lighting, but they're experienced enough that they know as much about what we do as I know about audio or video. I mean, I know a little bit more about video because I worked in television for so long. But I don't think we've had a problem where that's been an issue. And I think the best example is in the theme parks. Mm-hmm. Something like, I showed an image of the Harry Potter land at Universal Studios. And we did all of the technical system design for the lighting, audio, video, show control, all those different systems. And we worked with a number of different designers. And strangely enough, I wasn't the lighting designer. When they contracted us, I just assumed I was the lighting designer. But they already had another person in mind for that. Yeah. But they wanted us to do the entire technical design and infrastructure. So we were working with a lot of different departments. But we weren't in a position where we had to build a team out of people that didn't understand what we did. They knew we did lighting. We want you to do lighting. We know you do the technical design for the video systems and for the audio. We want you to do that. Mm-hmm. And so it was a great collaboration in all those cases. But everybody came into it knowing who was going to do what and what department was going to handle what.
It's interesting because when you talk about a project, it's a very challenging project, right? In general, you like to do things that had never been done before. Is this creating fear around your projects, or is this creating excitement and people that want to strive and do something new and different?
All of that. It's fear, but it's also excitement. Like Mikki was saying, you know, we're always insecure about this. I understood exactly what he was saying. I wake up every morning being insecure about what I'm going to do with my designs or something that day, but you have to, and I'm always looking for the next challenge.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where the excitement is and the fear is. Yeah. Doing something that other people haven't done.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a designers, this is the way to keep going.
Yeah.
Makes all the sense. Rebecca, in your case, I think software, it's the software culture, right? Because there's a culture around software that I think is pretty new to anything else, right? It's like the beginning of a new era, right? In terms of thinking, right? Is this part of your storytelling? When you're creating the story, and when you're talking about the projects and so on, I can see a lot of small things, small fragments of other areas, like UX, right? Is this a central part of your discovery of a story on how this will look visually? Or you prefer to inspire yourself in more traditional forms of art, and then you try to make it fit with the technology that is around you?
Well, it's not about the software. It's good to know what is out there in the market, and if there is not, you can make it. That's the good news. And I work with developers that sometimes we do bespoke, or we change certain features from existing open source softwares. But no, the inspiration, it comes from understanding clearly what the client wants. But guess what? They never know. Yeah. So a part of our role is to be facilitators on inspiring the client sometimes. Some clients, they clearly have an agenda, and they articulate well what they want, so you are just a translator in a visual and spatial way. But some others are just like, they feel or they think what they want, so our role is to ignite or to clarify that inspiration, and the way that we do it is to asking a lot of questions, and also knowing which will be the challenges from the space, from the money. You know, always asking the money is a very delicate question, because no one wants to tell you which is their budget, but it's very relevant. And I think when you already reach a certain level of professionalism, you are not driven, well, at least as we are not driven by money, but you need that in order to make things.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's.
And do you feel sometimes like a coach for these clients?
Well,
do you feel sometimes like you need to guide them?
I don't know if a coach, but definitely a facilitator. Mm-hmm. And we have like two types of clients: the end users, that yes, you act or you inspire them. Like you need to make a lot of research. Sometimes even historians need to be involved. Like you know, as more you research and you document yourself, the impact of the result has a higher emotion. Even if the people do not know it directly, you know that the essence is there, and that's very important for us. And some other clients are internal teams from big corporates that are project managers, engineers, and all of that, that sometimes you feel that you're in the room with chickens without head, you know, and everyone is like this. So sometimes we try to pull the strings and say, okay, guys, let's start in order, right? So
it's super interesting, all this collaboration, all this collaborative space, yeah. Mikki, all the stories, right, go from starting point towards an outcome, right? Most of the stories work this way. And I would like to ask you this question. Is this something that also happens in your mental space when you're trying to create something, that you start from something and you want to end somewhere else? Or is it something very interesting that you said before, that you're looking for this moment, right? This moment where everything works together, and there's this wow moment somehow where you create the emotion. Do you think in moments, in fragments that you want to achieve, or it's more like a narrative, a long-term narrative?
Wow, what a question. That's a big one. These days I feel and think that there is also a narrative that is kind of like longer than the productions you are working on. So it's your own narrative that is a long art of maybe 3 decades.
Yes. So
it's a very, very good, it's also like on a personal level, not only professionally, it's very good to think where you are flying at the moment, right? So put yourself in your own perspective and learn, you know, where you took the wrong turn, or what is working for you and what is not working for you. It's kind of, I think you would call this kind of like a holistic approach. This is very popular these days, like immersive, yeah. Yes. So, but I think in the end, everything kind of that kind of like reflects back to how you work. So you get more efficient when you understand like I feel a lot of times the main challenge in the career is not to stand in your own way. So sometimes in creation, you have such a strong passion for creating something new that you forget about the basics. And then if you take the same project and concentrate on the basics, because you are a creative person, that creation will come. It will be automatically there. But if you force it, the whole thing fails in a way. So you put yourself in the corner. So I kind of consider those. But of course, in a theater, especially, working with dance a lot and opera and ballet, what you are chasing are those small moments when somehow in one rehearsal this production starts to resonate in a way that you can't explain. The music, space, the whole experience starts to lift to another level. And sometimes it's a small move of a fader, small shift in color, but it's not only that. If you try to reproduce it technically the next time, it's never going to happen. So that's the whole beauty of the whole thing. It's you can also call it in a way like art by accident.
Yeah.
That's what we are doing, experimenting, playing like kids. Of course, you build a certain kind of skill set and this craftsmanship that I like to talk about. You build that, and from there you can play. And it's very important in this kind of field that you learn about the technology. If you're a painter, you have to know your brushes and your colors.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But if you look at Picasso, you're not interested in what kind of brushes he was using, right?
Yes.
So I feel the same about lighting design and the whole stage design and video art and everything. Like, who gives a fuck about the pixels, right?
Yeah,
in the end,
sure.
it's like what you want to do with that. What did you achieve? What was your expression?
Yes.
The same goes with like a ballet dancer. Has a lot of technique behind it, but it's not really the technique that is really interesting. It's something that comes from the soul. So that's the art. That's what kind of drives me, and somehow also manages to keep you humble. When like somebody asked me, like when I look at like my past works, what do I see? I see different levels of failure. so and that's the way the creative mind, for me at least, works. It's like you always try to, that would have been better that way. And you remember, in that production, this side light was not right because of this and this. So you will never watch that photo again because it will only remind of that, So, yeah, I don't know if that answers anything.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And introduces a topic for the three of you, please. Any of you, please come in. Which is the concept of vision, right? And I like this term a lot because vision, it's something visual, actually. When we talk about business, for example, right? Someone says, well, this is the vision of the company, right? And what is behind this language is interesting because it's something visual, right? It's something that they are supposed to see in their heads. And this is, I think, somehow, because I think all of us want to get a little bit inside of your heads today, right? We want to find out what is the mental process that happens in your mind to create the beautiful things that we see. And this is probably my question, right? What's vision for you? And is this something that you work in your mind? You have a clear picture, Mikki, maybe you said before that, in one of the images, right? Like, this is exactly what I had in my head that it is going to be. But then the accident happens, right? And then all the people is adding value to your vision and bringing something else. So what's vision? That would be my question. Who wants to get in?
I can start by clarifying a little bit about my way of working. So when I do the design work, we end up on stage. I don't feel that the design is something that would tell us exactly how it's going to be done. The design is a toolbox. It's kind of some choices that I made before, but then it's creative on stage. So every piece only becomes complete and becomes a piece on stage. I think it's would be really weird for me if I would say, okay, I decided that this light is going to be exactly like that. That's why sometimes I do have a problem working with some video designers who come there and say, this is the final result. because I feel that it has to happen. The creation has to happen in space, in real time. So it's only very, very few times that that I actually thought that it's going to look like this. And even with, like the picture that I referred to, or you said about, it's the beginning of the last piece of Ring Cycle. It's more like that resonated to me in a way that when I started in theater, I started feeling like I had this kind of gut feeling that I see a lot of things and I kind of feel that I would do it differently. I don't know how, I don't know what, but I feel like I could do this somehow in a different way. But you have to work your steps to all the years to find your own style. And then when the curtain came up in the end of the Ring Cycle, or in the last piece of the Ring Cycle, I understood that this is it, this is what I meant. This is everything I meant when I was a kid, when I was dreaming about doing something of my own in theater. Now it's there in front of my eyes. So I said, wow, okay, it's maybe one of the only moments when I'm kind of happy about it. So that's what I meant, yeah.
What about you guys?
I think that pre-visualization was more important 20 years ago than it is now. It's still important now, but before automated lights, you had to pick where the fixture goes and what color of gelatin to put in it. And so you needed to pre-visualize what the stage was going to look like. So you pick the right colors and all that. Now you can just do what we call a saturation hang with lights everywhere. And they can change any color. They can be any intensity. They can have gobos or not. They can be diffused. They can be sharp. And you don't have to pre-visualize as much as before. There's certainly projects where I visualize it in advance and design the layout. Sometimes, as Mikki does, with very few lights, specifically, because I pre-visualized it. But there's other shows, I don't know what I'm doing until I get there and I see what the dance number is. I haven't heard the music, I haven't seen the dance, and then I've got 15, 20 minutes to write a dozen cues. So those times you just have to think on your feet, and you have to make sure you have enough equipment in the right place and have the flexibility.
So you need to adapt as well.
You have to adapt, right.
Yeah. What about you, Rebecca?
So going back to your question, that what is vision for me?
Yeah.
I think to mention vision and visionary, no?
Yeah.
The big difference between that. So vision for me, it's like to be very loyal to the set of values that are your common ground for creation, and regardless the outcome that will depend on the context and the needs and everything. So for me, my vision, or what has been working for me, is to try to be as loyal as possible to myself. But of course, we need to pay the bills, and sometimes, after maybe you make 5 to pay the bill and 1 more loyal to, so also to be flexible on that, and it's okay. We run businesses and it has to be sustainable, but as much as possible to be closer to that inner voice that says, this no, this yes, and the way that you create has to be. And then and I want just to share about the visionary, from vision to visionary. I think visionaries are the ones that will be copied, the ones that will disrupt maybe a market, and to reach to that, I think it's many years of trial and error. And I met some of them, and what I see, especially in one that I met, is that they remain very loyal to this inner voice. So I think that's my good to go.
So they are very connected then,
yes,
right?
I think it requires a lot of this introspection that have the tendency to end up in a personal crisis. I don't know how many years you have personal crisis, but it needs like a cycle of every 4 years, 5 years, or more often. So yeah, I think it's about that. The best creations is when you are in the most drama and struggle in your life. So at least in my case.
Mikki?
Yeah, it just came to my mind, like I like to say, when we talk about clients and projects, like a good kind of guideline is that if you don't know where you stand, what you think, what is your vision as a designer, they will tell you. and that's when you lose that's when the line is out of your hands.
Exactly.
And then you become a remote control for someone else. So that's why it's very important to work on your values, so you know what kind of aesthetic is the aesthetic that you can sign. And then it's a responsibility, for example, of the producer to handpick the right creative people to work with, and then to support you. It's not your job in the process of the creation to sell yourself every day to the producer.
Right.
But the producer has to have your back. That's how I see it. So there it's very important to also somehow to find the firmness of saying this is what I do, and this is the quality that I deliver, and so that one day you don't need to be Coca-Cola and Pepsi the next day, right?
Well, this is great because it talks once again about values, and this is probably what the machines cannot do, right? This is the part of the machines that is not working really properly. They have values and going somewhere with these in mind. Very connected to what you just guys said, it's the concept of a style, right? Because you have the story and you want to tell a story with it, you want to narrate somehow, and you have a vision, you know more or less where you want to end up. Sometimes not, sometimes you experiment and to get there. And then there is this concept of a style, right? How to do it, how to get there. And what I think we all of us saw the same thing in your presentations. We saw a style, right? We saw the Jim style, and we saw the Rebecca style, we saw the Mikki style, right? And this is present, different artists, different projects, different budgets, still there, right? It belongs to you somehow. There's something that represents you. What's the style for you? Is this something that you think about and you try to conceptualize this and do a philosophy around it somehow? Or is it something that you don't care at all and suddenly it just pops up? What's the style for you guys? That's a difficult one. Huh?
I try not to have a style. Perhaps you saw a style based on the examples that I showed today, and that's completely valid. Yeah. But there's shows that I do that are very beamy, like a lot of the things that Mikki showed, and I'm sure he has shows that don't look like that.
Yes.
Other times. So I try to avoid having my own style, but having said that, in the 1980s, when I was doing television studio work, a telenovela in New York, the producer would come into the control room and say, "I knew you were here lighting this today because I recognized your style."
Yeah.
I was just trying to make it look good.
Yeah.
But she said, I can always tell when you're here, which days of the week you were here, because of the way it looks. So I guess maybe we do have our styles, but I really think it's important to break out of your style and be flexible.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
It's also like, well, especially when I was younger, I was thinking about this a lot. When you're young and not so experienced, you think like, oh, every time I have to reinvent everything, and I have to be nothing. I can't redo anything. It always has to be new. Come on. It's like there's certain things you like and certain things you don't like, and the things you like slowly develop into your style. And I think my style as a designer is like, it's everything I got. It's like nothing else. I have nothing else but these opinions, So
is this an opinion? It's
just
style and opinion.
It's just an opinion about things. Like I
That's
like
a very
this,
good
I
point.
don't like that. I do things this way, So I think that's it's very valuable, the most valuable thing, I think. And again, like looking at the longer arc, the older you get, and the older I get, the more I kind of like get in touch with that style, and sort of like it's not like trying to make the productions look like they are mine.
Yeah.
But I have no way around it.
Yeah.
And I accept it, So it has to do with small things like talking about doing rock shows, but still keeping some kind of elegance, not having everything there's not all kinds of effects going on all the time, but you try to find the essence. So that's the kind of theater coming in, Or, the same kind of thing in classical ballet, like trying to understand from this kind of like elegant point of view in a way. At least I try to do that. So yeah, I think style is for me it's very, very important.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Rebecca?
I think right now, in the moment that I'm with myself, for me, style is more about the way of working than the result or from the visual perspective. Of course, in my case, I was very defined because I work a lot with LEDs, with sticks of light, as Sofia one day told me. So my thing was that I was doing one project, and that project was calling the next one and the next one. So I entered for many years in this dynamic of clients asking me for that. Mm-hmm. And it was very frustrating because I don't wanted to do that, but I needed to do it anyway. Mm-hmm. So what I tried, at least from 2010 until 2018, was to try to find the multiples way that still there was the essence on why the client called me, but trying to make a twist so it was the appropriate style for that space or that inspiration that the client had, but still had like bottom line, the LEDs, the structures, bespoke, whatever. So I don't care right now about that. Mm-hmm. Of course, you know what you know, and people call you. Right now, I think people call me because they have fun when we are working together, and I enjoy like really the process, and of course because they know that things are gonna work at the end. But I don't think they necessarily call me because I have a certain style. I think it's the way that I work, what they are looking for right now.
But this is very interesting what you're saying, Rebecca, because you're now what you are proposing here, which is I really like the idea, is that maybe we should merge more the concept of workflow, the concept of methodology, and the concept of a style. Maybe it's all a mix of things working together and interacting. Is that what you are saying? Yeah,
I think we work like the cosmos in the way that we connect the stars and we end up with constellations. Mm-hmm. So as Mikki said, it's like we are just collecting all these years of experience, what didn't work in the previous project, and you try to not repeat the mistake, etc. So I think we are rendering in real time, like assembling, and then there is the variable of the accident, and sometimes it's not what you want, it's what is happening. Yeah. And it happens a lot when you use, like in my case, like real-time rendering softwares, like Touch Designer or Matrix, whatever, where you are like, testing the tools, and some things or some accidents happen. Of course, you need to have your storyline and everything and connect these dots, but also to still, after so many years, get surprised of your own accidents or the accidents or the circumstances, and to be very flexible and agile on how to use that in your favor.
Makes all the sense. Yeah. Yes. Let's talk about something related to this and to any story probably, but it's a design concept, I would say. Let's go back to this constant obsession that I have to put ourselves in the focus of design, right? That to regain the authority of design in our discipline. And of course, when any student of design, they tell them the most important thing is the briefing, right? The briefing part. In the beginning, when you talk to the client tell you, this is what I pretend or what I want to do, or this is the purpose of this, and so on. So what we can see, I think everyone will have a different opinion here. We approach the briefing phase in a completely different manner. This is very personal, right? We ask some questions in certain manner. We go around the project in certain manner. Sometimes we ask for rehearsals. Sometimes we don't have the chance to have the rehearsals. So how do you approach this part, which is the research part? What's your concept or what your methodology when you become appointed to do a design and you need to have this briefing? Any of you, I'm just looking at Jim, but any of you, please.
Certainly entering into any project, I'm used to the kickoff meeting where a lot of times a producer or a client will have very specific ideas. Other times they think they have ideas, but they really don't, and their idea is we want to use new technology or something very flashy. And you have to draw it out of them what they really want. And it takes a while to learn how to do that, but you have to learn the questions to ask to draw out of them what they want, how they want it to look, how they want it to sound, how they want it to move, all those things. And then you get to the technical side and you ask them, what's your maintenance budget?
Important.
Right, because we don't want to design something that you can't afford to maintain.
Yeah.
So you have to draw those questions. But so that's in projects where you have a brief. Anybody that works on location in television and films knows you never really have that brief. You show up on location with a truck full of lights, and the director says, I'm going to put the camera here, and you say, well, no, you're shooting into the sun. Let's go here. The background's better. And then you tell the crew to put a light over there and put one there, and you create it while you're standing there.
Which is beautiful as well.
Right. So there's a lot of jobs where you don't have the brief. You just figure it out in a few minutes.
Yeah, it's actually, it's normally a mix of the two, right? I think it's very difficult for any designer to just go on perfect detail briefing. Yeah, absolutely. What about you guys?
Oh, interesting question again. And well, I just last night had a Teams meeting with a new client in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So this is a very good example. I think my first job with the new client is to find who am I to them. Yeah. Like what kind of a person I am in this scenario. Yeah. Like first of all, do they know who they're talking to? Most likely not because they're calling me. Mm-hmm. And then like what it has to do with everything. Like what is their technical knowledge or the way that they do productions? Like is it very high level or is if we're working with video, like last night I was trying to find out like what is their level of knowledge in terms of like touring with video production. Mm-hmm. Content creation, how we collaborate. Do they see a production as a technical Excel sheet or is it really collaborative in terms of artistic? Is it going to be very time consuming with them, like they are really like on the phone and on Teams and online all the time, and which can be then in real life a little bit challenging because I'm also like a single father, so I have had like production meetings at home where I'm cooking at the same time and having the Zoom open for Cirque du Soleil. Presenting my designs.
Does this inspire you as well? So your little moments of your personal life, is this something that you suddenly apply, something that happens during the briefing that you're doing with your kid and you immediately say, this I'm going to put it somewhere else, or no?
No, I like to think these days that we should aim for a balance so that you don't have any moment in your life that feels off balance. Mm-hmm. And that's where the running comes to play. And so like, I think this profession is very off balance a lot of times. Like we do productions that are very like high energy and very concentrated on a small like feel good person of life, and you want to aim like on high notes. And that kind of like can be also like a distraction to your personal energy. So then you have to go and balance. And the more balanced you are, the easier it is to deal with this craziness. And it's because it's a lovely art form that we are dealing with, performing arts. It's amazing, like to meet all the people. Like you meet these acrobats in Cirque du Soleil, for example. Like it's mind blowing what they do. And sitting here with all of you is like, who thought that we would end up here, right? Yeah. So I think it's all about balance.
Super, Rebecca.
Briefing.
Yes, briefing. Correct. Design.
I have many hats, as you have heard in my presentation. So when I'm lucky enough to work with people like Mikki or like Jim, I act as a creative technologist. So I've been lucky enough to receive the brief or the need of what people like you required. So it's my duty to find the best solutions for particular things, like a certain effect that you're looking or whatever, especially when it's, I am always like the extra accessory of the decoration. I'm never the main thing. So I'm always that LED that is hidden in your scenography behind that only make like the flame once in 2 hours, you know? So I'm that person when I'm with that hat of the creative technologist. So the brief is coming from very professional people that has a lot of experience, but in this moment of the career, they don't need to, they just need to tell me, articulate as clearly as possible what is the objective of that thing that they are looking, and I look for the technology and the people and connect the dots. Then, when I have the hat in the architainment or media architecture, which we share some clients with Tapio, then it's another story, because the briefing, it's about the marketing agenda. It's going to be about the space. So there are many variables. So it's the art of understanding the full picture and propose a balance for how that is going to be achieved, etc. So it requires a little bit more of work, if you wish. And my role is not only to hear, but also to propose, because some things are not practicable in real life. There is a tendency now with the immersive things, etc., that are so many times not practicable for execution. So sadly, I am the one talking about the elephant in the room. It's very uncomfortable, but I am the boomers of the room, like, guys, this is not want to work. And I'm okay with that. I lost some clients because of that, and it's okay, but someone needs to talk about the elephant in the room. And the last one, when I work for lighting designers, that I'm their programmer, I do something that I'm not proud about, but I come with suggestions. Yeah. So I influence them sometimes, because some of them are very experienced and they are going to be very clear and they are very poetic. So translate poetry into visual, which is
that's beautiful.
Normal here, but in an architectural context is a similar approach, similar to what it's done in the scenic arts. But also sometimes I will come already with some suggestions that I know based on experience that are going to be appropriate for that building. So I come with pre-homework sometimes.
This is beautiful what you just said, visual poetry, right? That's in a way what we do, right? Or what you guys do. It's really a good way of defining it. I have one more, and then I would like to open to questions from the audience. But you know, I'm trying to challenge you a little bit with these questions. This is going to be even more challenging, I think. But you know that storytelling in our craft has a lot to do with the space, right? We are constantly playing with volumes and throw and spaces, right? And of course, in the case of Rebecca, you're working with architectural spaces. In your case, in cruise ships. Imagine that, right? In the middle of the sea, you need to create experience there. And Mikki, you're constantly switching from ballet, which is the most classical thing, right, to rock and roll stuff. And what's the role of perspective? Because without perspective and without the space and depthness and all the, you know, how we can reveal the space and what things we hide from the space and what's the role of these in your storytelling? You think more in a volumetric way, or you prefer to think in 2D? This is my story, like writing a novel, and then I apply this to the technology that you have. Any of you?
I can start. It's as a principal rule, there is a perfect moment. A perfection is a blackout, when the space is totally dark, when not a single light has been lit. When the first light is lit, something is sculpted away, as far as possibilities go. That's how I see it. So the more lights I use, the worse it gets in a way, or kind of the possibilities goes, you know, smaller and smaller all the time.
So you start with the negative space then?
Yeah, I think darkness is the perfect canvas. It's like that's when I'm programming a show and I paint myself in a corner with a scene, I reverse back to darkness, because then again everything is possible. That's how I see it.
Well, I go. Well, perspective is it's everything from the philosophical and from the physical reality because it touches the perception.
Yes.
So in my practice, it's extremely relevant because the people that I don't have control on where the audience is going to be when I'm working in architainment. So it's what I explained before about the cities and everything. So you need to prototype how people is going to look at it and everything. So it has to be like, okay, for not all the possible perspectives because it's infinite, but also for me, that's the real interaction. Mm-hmm. You know, many artists work with interactive projects, but my interaction is the movement of the people. Mm-hmm. So that's where perspective enters.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, in my work is variable. It's always variable, and it's fun. It's fun because it's like you see a project all over again from different perspectives, and it's like a different thing. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I like to play a lot with that, and also from the philosophical perspective. It's very easy to contaminate yourself when you are doing like this, especially when you are in an intense part of career, no? So you can lose also perspective.
Yes.
So it's good so every now and then to make a cleansing, you know, like a brain detox, and it's going back to what Mikki shared about the balance, and to be able to, like, you know, make a little reset, like, or I don't know, whatever that is needed for your neurons. Yes. to refresh. So how to refresh yourself when you are doing the same so many years, yeah, and to still be vigente. I don't know how it's said in...
It's almost a question to you, Jim, because you have been doing this for so many years and in such an incredible manner. So how do you see this?
I definitely pre-visualize in 3D volumetric sense. Mm-hmm. I don't do as much work in proscenium theaters as I do in other spaces such as arenas or outside or just strange spaces. But this is a related thought. Always one of the challenges is working in theaters with the proscenium is creating that depth on the stage. Yes. Because it becomes, naturally it's going to be two-dimensional because we're all looking at it from one side.
Sure.
And I think the introduction of haze and automated lighting and beams in the air has really made a big difference in terms of dimensionality. Yes. on the stage.
You reveal the architecture of light somehow, right?
Yeah. And you can just give much more of a sense of depth than you could before they were invented. But that's sort of an aside to that. But I definitely pre-visualize in 3D, and some of that coming from television, where you're pre-visualizing how it looks from multiple camera angles.
Yes.
But I never thought about it before until you asked the question. So.
I'm sure you did in a way or another. Yes. Yeah,
subconsciously.
Yes,
right.
yes. Makes all the sense. Well, we have three here. I always use this term of magos lucis, right? Because you guys are magicians. That's what you are. You're wizards. You change the perception of people. The people suddenly they are sitting down there and they suddenly entering a imaginary space where everything is possible, and this is thanks to your incredible vision on that area. And I think if there's a way to talk about magic, this is what you guys represent. Any questions here in the audience? Please. You have a microphone there? Yeah.
Hello. Well, thank you to the three of you. I'm a huge fan of the three of you already. And I was, but right now, truly fun. And it's funny for me that this table was made in English, because in Spanish we have historia, in English we have story and history.
Yes.
And I believe that through each of your projects and each of the stories that you tell in each project, you are building a history, the history of lighting design and the history of all the projects and the lighting that is going to build the visual education for the next generation. And I would like to know if you have thought about this perspective that each of your projects is building the visual education for the next generation, and if you feel the responsibility of it, if you do, and if you don't, how is your thought about it?
Best question ever.
Yeah.
I think this is such a good question.
Yes. Yeah, can I start?
Go ahead.
It gives me vertigo because I know that for what we are doing, we are influencing people, spaces. We are altering how people is interacting with the space, how they feel, and everything. And sometimes, since I became a mom 2 years ago, I said, I don't want to make big scale projects like all this Saudi thing that is happening. No, I want low key, simple. Just ask me for the little effect you need there behind, But then I thought, no. Listen, it's been more than 20 years in this, and sometimes I feel like not like a Robin Hood, but like the responsibility of being present in the things that are happening now that is going to impact the next future years of our spaces, and at least I would like to be part of it, not to influence and have medals or, I did this and did, no, but to say this enthusiasm about putting screens everywhere, it's wrong, guys. Like, stop it. Like, let's reanalyze what do we need as humans, nature. Let's try to reconnect with our basic needs and try to analyze and criticize ourselves and take out, the interest of exaggeration, because there are commercial interests sometimes of putting and putting and putting. So I feel with the responsibility not only for the influence that the students or the future designers will do, but also of what is going on right now as we speak in these massive projects for architainment especially. Right? So yeah, it gives me vertigo and also happiness that I'm able to participate on those decisions. So yeah, I don't know if I answered.
Mikki, responsibility.
Yes, it's actually quite accurate, well-timed question for me, because a couple of years ago, as I showed in my presentation, I started to show my own photo exhibition. I put it together and it's been shown a number of times. And I realized that I have this massive archive of photos that even I don't know about, because I photograph, if I do photos of a production, I take like between maybe 500 to 3,000 photos of that production in a rehearsal. And all of that is somewhere. Most of that I never even looked at in Lightroom or whatever. So I put that together, and I think from there the ball started rolling, that sometimes I get invited to do these keynotes, like this one, and I used to hate this. And then what happened in 2017, I was invited to this event, Showlight, in Florence, to talk about Swan Lake. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I felt like, okay, maybe what if I do it like very honestly, and I tell about all the insecurities and everything that's related to this? Because it was a turning point for me, Swan Lake. I almost quit the whole profession because I felt that it's moving nowhere. And decided to put all the eggs into this basket and see what comes out. Mm-hmm. Well, out came Swan Lake. Okay, so I learned a lot.
It, huh?
Yes, so that kind of like changed my approach to keynotes. And as my background is in theater, theater has a tradition of the older generation taking the hand of the next generation, walking them forward, and then letting them fly. Mm-hmm. So we have this obligation of doing this, and I feel that obligation more and more the older I get, and so like this year I've been putting a lot of effort into trying to make these sessions better and better, and putting some materials together. Like the keynote today, I have basically 700 pages there. We saw just a part of it. So it's always depending on the audience as well, like what I talk about. Like if I talk about the ice projection show or whatever. So it's all about giving the torch to the next generation, because not because of us, but because we make sure that they will do the same to the next ones. Yes. It's like growing kids. It's the same thing. you educate by example, you know. So be a good person, and that's enough.
Correct.
Right?
Nothing more human than that,
Yeah.
right? Legacy,
Legacy.
right? So, Jim.
Yeah, I think Rebecca had a very good point that just by virtue of what we're doing, the next generation is learning from that, just as we learned from the previous generation.
Exactly.
And I said in my presentation, I was very fortunate to learn from the people that were the first generation of television lighting designers. They were inventing television lighting in the late 40s and 1950s.
Yes.
And I'm now involved in the ETC mentorship program
Yes.
with students. But I'm going to address a related issue that is a topic we're going to be covering at Showlight, and that is asking designers, how do you document your productions so they can be remounted again in the future? And it's not really an issue for me because everything I do is a one-off. Or it'll run continuously, but it's not going to run for 7 days, and then they remount it 5 years later, as in the case with you.
Yeah, this is a massive problem. Like I don't think that the opera houses, for example, that they don't even understand what we are talking about. Yeah. With all the software releases, firmware releases, new versions of the media servers, laser sources, everything is happening so fast that it's not enough to have the show file. You know, it's not enough to know that the spot was there, but it's all about you'd have to document the content of the show, you know, in a way that you don't actually have to see the show to be able to reproduce it. Now we are just talking about some bits and pieces technically. So I try to talk about this a lot to opera houses, and they look at me like they have no clue. So.
Because in 50 years after you're dead, they're going to want to mount Swan Lake again.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So now what I do is, like, for example, media servers, I take screenshots of every layer, every cue, and the output is there as well. So you can actually see how it looked on stage and what the parameters were. Because there's a lot of parameters in media server, you know, so many universes of DMX or whatever, or ArtNet. So it's it's a problem.
Yeah. What we are doing is we are document what I do, like the DMX Warriors guidelines, which is like also methods of doing things, and trying to every time I'm transmitting right now, like know how to Kala, and she's 25. We are 15 years away. So every time I'm explaining something to her, I say, this that you make your notes convert into a document that then someone in your position will be able to get. So I try that whatever we are learning by the learn by doing method that we got, I'm trying to convert it into pills of knowledge, if you wish.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
I feel that this is something that, you know, we talk about a lot about AI. Like yesterday, we had this discussion about AI. I think, in my opinion, we are talking about completely wrong things. We should be interested in, as an industry, for example, you do a TV production. Why not use the AI to adjust our cameras, our key lights, and our screens? Yeah. Because it could easily do that.
Yeah.
Instead of us like using 2 days to adjust. Yes. We could just tell them, like, make it like it was last year. And it's the same with documenting. We should develop tools that can document in a sustainable way. Yeah.
Which also, is part of the...
Also a hot word.
It's also part of the software culture as well, right? Rebecca was talking, this is the main thing, right? When you're coding, you need to comment on your code, right? Otherwise, no one else will understand it anymore. And because we are failing all the time, and that's the process of designing, fail, 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 you need to know where to fail and so on. It's super interesting what you guys are saying, and especially what you just said, Jim, because I don't know if you guys know that it's still the designs of Jan Rosenthal, they still have the design in there. Jan Rosenthal still appears in every single dance function that happens with this company. It still appears the name of Jan Rosenthal there. That's legacy, right?
Right.
Yes.
But in the meantime, the gelatin colors that she used haven't been manufactured since the 1960s.
Yes. So you have to adapt that somehow.
Yeah. So this is why we want to have this possibly as a round table, or discussion like this about how designers document their work.
Yeah, looking forward.
And I see it coming together already.
Yeah, looking forward to show light, and of course we recommend everyone to go there and participate. It's a once in every 4 years, right? Time.
Except for COVID.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
which it's a big part of our history now. We have another question somewhere that we can ask. Is that okay? Let's go.
Hello. I love your speeches today, thank you. And I also have an interest on knowing about the projects that you haven't done. How do you reject a project offer? What are your parameters?
So
Sorry,
about the,
Again?
tell us again about the projects that
You haven't
yet.
done. Like, what are your parameters on knowing which projects to reject?
To reject. Okay.
Yes,
So
reject.
when do you say, okay, you cross the line, I don't want to do that project anymore? Is that a money thing? Is that a mentality thing, style? What is it?
I mean, I don't want to be the Jesus here, but I used to do a lot of commercial TV, a lot of it. And then there became a point where I was doing the Big Brother, and I saw how they're cheating with the votes, the telephone votes, where they make all the money. And I said, I can't be, this is like not healthy to be dealing with this kind of things. Anyways, that was like the top of the iceberg. But I had to move away from commercial TV because personally it was not giving me anything. It was just taking away from my time. Of course, it was giving me a lot of money. But so that meant what? A fancier car or something like that. So I had to make that change for being able to dig a little bit deeper in terms of being a creative artist. So I said no. Of course, there are times when you can't say no because you have to, pay the bills. But generally, I moved away from commercial TV like more than 10 years ago, with the exception of Eurovision Song Contest.
So in a way, that red
But
line.
that's in the category of circus more.
But that red line, I feel like it's like you got bored out of it. Is that it for you?
No, it has to do with the content. It has to do with like continuity. Like if there's anything that we grow, if there's anything that stays, anything that you learn and you become better with that. And as a production collective, if we learn something and we grow from that. But I think there was not an interest like that in the producing side at all. It was only a question of how much does it cost. And if it looks great until the commercials, then that's fine. And
interesting. What are your red lines, Rebecca?
My filters, I think mainly two. One, I need to be able to communicate with the client easily, fluent. We need to be like aligned in a certain set of values, because it's very difficult what we do if we don't have the ability to communicate. There is no story. Yeah. So I think that's my first filter. And the second one is a little bit more pragmatic, and I apply it from the project management methodology, which is cost, price, and quality. So if that pyramid do not sustain, then it cannot happen. So I don't say no to the projects just because, like I welcome all projects, even if they are commercial or more artistic or whatever, because I think in every project there is a value that you can share or something to learn. So I'm very open to hear first and understand. But that pyramid rules, like there is a reality on the physics, on the time, on the budget, everything. So
it's a balance between these 3 points.
Yes, it has to be a balance. If you sacrifice time, then the cost increases.
Yeah,
Are you willingly
sense.
to pay that?
Makes sense. What's your red line, Jim?
Well, the audience is dark. I can't see you, but based on the question, I know you are young. Because I was trained that you never turn down any job. And if you're already busy, you find a way to get it done with a friend. You get another designer to work with you, but you never turn down any work.
Because it's difficult,
Right.
To get it. Yeah.
And then in building a company, we're always looking for more work because we have so many mouths to feed. It's only recently that I've been turning down work, and it's just because I don't want to fly across the country to do 2 or 3 days of something I've done 100 times. Yeah. I'm only interested in doing new things. I mean, having said that, I wouldn't work for certain political parties, but that's a
red
moral
line. That's a red line.
Right. Or specific political events, but I was never of the mindset of turning something down. We always found a way to make it work.
Well, I think this was I don't know if you felt the same I feel, but I think this has been a memorable moment. Huh? I think I'm going to keep the things that I heard today, the insights that I heard today for a while, and I'm going to think about it for the next year, I think. Because these are titans talking about very interesting things. And I just want to say thank you guys for being here, for being so open, for talking so openly. Someone was telling me there in the table outside, they were telling me, look, in our business, we keep the things for ourselves. So I'm kind of impressed to come to this place and see that you are revealing all the secrets. Well, that's what we are, right? We are a community of people that want to share, learn from each other, and this is a very good example for it. So I just want to ask the audience a big applause for these titans. Huh?